How the tide has now turned. A bombshell report just being released. Transcript, to be more specific. Doing, in my opinion, more work than the entire J6 committee did in its entire existence. You remember all the headlines, this on the Washington Post. No, Trump did not order 10,000 troops to secure the Capitol on January 6th, or Associated Press. Trump did not sign an order to deploy 20,000 troops on January 6th. Let's go forward to PolitiFact. Says he requested 10,000 National Guardsmen. This was rated absolutely false. Newsweek. Miller says Trump did not order to deploy January 6 troops. Let's keep going all the way to CBS News now, shall we? Trump did not have 10,000 troops ready to deploy on January 6th. Mediaite. Trump Defense Secretary says he never received directions or order to deploy National Guard on January 6th. The Wall Street Journal, according to none other than Liz Cheney out of Wyoming, stating Trump never called military to defend U.S. Capitol on January 6th. This is all now demolished by this report coming out of the House Administration Subcommittee on Oversight dated September 16th of 2024. It destroys everything. Because it appears now that maybe a lot of this testimony, well, wasn't necessarily all included in the J6 report, but we now have it. And we are going to bring you every single person within it. The transcript they provided and the quotes, the evidence, the receipts, call it what you want, to demolish, and this in all certainty, if anyone is paying attention, should hand Donald J. Trump the victory, because he, once again, is vindicated on what he told each and every one of us. We'll be back in just 1 minute. All right, my friends, can't thank you enough for tuning in today. Before we go further, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. You like what we're doing here, that means the world to us. Lisa will put a link above if you can subscribe to my channel. Can't tell you how much that means to us. And now just a word from our sponsor before I take off, because once I get going on this, I'm not going to stop. Be back with you in just a few minutes.
Now, we have been told our entire lives that wrinkle creams are the way to look younger. But now one doctor says that that's nothing but old news. According to Dr. John Lake, the world-renowned Beverly Hills beauty expert, most wrinkle fixes on the market are nothing but glorified moisturizers. Well, recently, Dr. Lake has focused his attention away from mainstream cosmetic practices. Why? Well, so that he can focus directly on anti-aging revolutionary breakthroughs. Now, his clients have dubbed this do-it-yourself technique the age rewinder method, because it can take years and even decades off of your appearance in 2 minutes' time. In light of this amazing breakthrough, Dr. Lake has released a step-by-step video to the public where he outlines exactly how to use simple solutions from home. Now, if you want to check it out, all you have to do is go to bhmd1.com/haven. That's bhmd1.com/haven to watch that video. And if you want more information, you can click in the description box below. There's a link down there. Or if you're on your cell phone, click that more button to get more information, but you're not going to want to miss it out, as this product has been life-changing for me personally. All right, back to the broadcast.
Chairman Barry Loudermilk putting this out. This is where we're going to start. The House Administration Subcommittee on Oversight dated September 16th of 2024, breaking bombshell transcript now, revealed to each and every one of us, previously concealed by the Biden-Harris administration's Department of Defense. The subcommittee has uncovered statements by key personnel involved in the deployment of D.C. National Guard to the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. How many times have we heard Donald J. Trump talk about this? Say he had the National Guard ready. But he was blocked. And this will go to tell you that he's always been telling you the truth. These new transcripts indicate that senior Pentagon officials unnecessarily delayed the D.C. National Guard response to the Capitol on January 6 due to optics concerns. But we got to go into more detail here. The DoD IG claims that the actions at the Pentagon were reasonable in light of circumstances at the Capitol on January 6, 2021. The IG also determined that the Department of Defense officials did not delay or obstruct the DoD's response to the U.S. Capitol Police's request for assistance on January 6th of 2021. However, and in bold, and I should mark this for you, the transcripts reveal otherwise. That is an understatement to say the very least. So I'm going to give you some history here. I'm going to give you some context, but we're going to start with one of my least favorite characters, General Mark Miley, Chairman, Joint Chiefs of Staff. And he quotes, January 3rd of 2021, the president just says, hey, look at this. There's going to be a large amount of protesters here on the 6th. Make sure you have sufficient National Guard or soldiers to make sure it's a safe event. Hey, I don't care if you use guards, soldiers, active duty soldiers, do whatever you have to do, just make sure it's safe. I guess the fact checkers can claim, well, is there a number provided there? No, that's what they did. They twisted a lot of this, didn't they? U.S. top general said he was puzzled Trump didn't call on the military to help respond to the January 6th attacks. And I go on. Quote by General Mark Miley. You're the commander-in-chief, he said during the closed-door testimony. You got an assault going on the Capitol of the United States of America. Nothing, no call, nothing, zero, and I quote, however, the transcript now says otherwise, doesn't it? The president just says, hey, look at this. There's going to be a large amount of protesters here on the 6th. Make sure you have sufficient National Guard or soldiers. I guess now all of a sudden General Mark Miley doesn't know how to respond to a direct order. I don't care if you use guard or soldiers, active duty soldiers, do whatever you have to do, just make sure it's safe. But I guess that's not enough context now. Suddenly, General Mark Miley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, needs to have his hand held to know how to execute an order from the commander-in-chief. That's what they would like you to believe. Not going to stand down on this one. General Miley held top-secret meeting to block Trump's nuke access, told staff to disobey all but his orders. General Mark Miley's orders. I guess he had time to do that, though, didn't he? He can make an executive decision there, but can't follow a simple order. That's not all we have. Back to the main transcript. Down to Christopher Miller, acting Secretary of Defense, a confused man. The president commented that they were going to need 10,000 troops the following day. Well, that seems to be the number we were looking for. The president commented that we were going to need 10,000 troops the following day. You're following me here, right? This is real black and white. I interpret it as a bit of a presidential banter, or President Trump banter, that you are all familiar with. And in no way, shape, or form did I interpret that as an order or direction given by, again, Donald J. Trump, the commander-in-chief, with the specific number of 10,000 troops. Trump Defense Secretary says he never received direction or order to deploy National Guard on January 6th. If you followed this story close enough, you would understand there's a problem with that statement. This statement, to be more specific, there is a problem with. Listen in here for 1 minute.
I just want to be clear here that since then, in February of 2021, Mark Meadows said on Fox News that, quote, even in January, that was a given. As many as 10,000 National Guard troops were told to be on the ready by the Secretary of Defense. Is there any accuracy to that statement?
I'm not from my perspective. I was never given any direction or order or knew of any plans of that nature. So.
Okay, suddenly he's got memory loss. I was never given any orders. I was never given any direction. So just take the fact that you stated the president commented that we were going to need 10,000 troops the following day. Let's throw that in the garbage, pretend it never existed. But to make matters worse, you then admit later on, not only in that quote that's in the transcript, but in this interview on Sean Hannity, Well, something completely to the contrary.
Then we pivoted to setting up for January 6th, and Mr. Trump unequivocally authorized up to 20,000 National Guardsmen and women for us to utilize should the second part of the law, the requests, come in. But those requests never did, as you highlighted.
Let me be very clear. Both of you said this under oath, under the threat of a penalty of perjury to the committee?
Oh, absolutely, Sean. And to be clear.
Absolutely, Sean. Yes. We were told to have them ready. I told you, a very, very confused man. Acting Defense Secretary Chris Miller contradicts himself, says Trump did not order to deploy January 6 troops, but just said he did order to deploy and quoted that he ordered to deploy. And then you get on an interview and said he ordered to deploy. I think now we know where the truth is, don't we? But he went on. You'll just see here how much he adores Trump. On January 6, 2021, everyone was like, did you listen to the president's speech? I'm like, the guy speaks for 90 minutes. It's like Castro or something. No, I got work to do. It's like Castro or something. Can't see why there's been so many attempts on Donald J. Trump's life. Can't understand why, can you? I was cognizant, he goes on, of the fears that the president would invoke the Insurrection Act to politicize the military in an anti-democratic manner. And just before the Electoral College certification, 10 former secretaries of defense signed an op-ed piece in the Washington Post warning of the dangers of politicizing and using inappropriately the military. No such thing was going to occur on my watch. I guess the commander-in-chief really doesn't have the power the commander-in-chief thinks he has, but he should have, because he was overridden. There is absolutely, another quote, no way I was putting U.S. military forces at the Capitol, period. Remember again, this is in the transcript from the House Administration Subcommittee on Oversight, just quoting what was stated in the report. The operational plan was this: let's take the D.C. National Guard, keep them away from the Capitol, and actually, we're going to put some on traffic control if you want to go further. The others will just sit in a bus or a parking garage and wait while everything deteriorates and nobody can do anything about it. And within this transcript, you start to get the truth out of a lot of other folks who are aggravated, upset, just like Steve Sutton. I'm making an urgent request for the National Guard. We are being overrun. I gave a quick rundown of what we had going on, and the officers out there are fighting for their lives. We were about to be taken over. The representative from the Secretary of the Army said, I don't like the optics, which we've all heard this quote, of the National Guard standing in a line with the Capitol in the background. I explained to them that the building is being breached. I need their assistance immediately. He, General Payot, said, my recommendation to the Secretary of the Army is to not support the request. Absolute liars. We're going to go back to this article in a moment in relation to Colonel Earl Matthews, to be more specific. But within this article, it states at the time, Payot was the director of the Army staff, one of the top generals in the Pentagon. And Flynn, not Michael Flynn, Flynn's brother, was the Army's director of operations. The two men were the highest-ranking Army officials who spoke on the 2:30 call, according to Matthews. Payot stated that it would not be in the best military advice, his best military advice, to recommend the Secretary of the Army that the D.C. National Guard be allowed to deploy to the Capitol at the time, he wrote. Payot and Flynn stated the optics of having uniformed personnel deployed to the U.S. Capitol would not be good. Payot and Flynn suggested instead the Guardsmen take over the D.C. police officers' traffic duties. This report again, House Administration Subcommittee on Oversight. That Trump had already requested it. How many times have you been told he didn't? I just showed you article after article. So why are things being politicized? It's Donald J. Trump's fault. General William Walker, D.C. National Guard Commanding General. My thoughts are that there has to be something else at play here. Why is there such a concern about the proximity to the Capitol? We hadn't had that before. General Payot at 2:42 p.m., it would not be in the best military advice to send the National Guard to the U.S. Capitol. Why? Because of the optics again. Everybody keeps stating it over and over because they were scratching their head as to why. D.C. National Guard Chief, Pentagon took 3 hours to greenlight troops during the Capitol assault. And so they had to stand back. Stand down. Sound familiar? House Administration Subcommittee on the Oversight, going back to the report, Colonel Earl Matthews. I told you we're going to come back to him. D.C. National Guard. The D.C. Guard couldn't go in right away. They could have, but they didn't. But the Secretary of the Army did not give us the approval. There was concern about being anywhere near the Capitol because of the perception the military would be involved, that there would be militarization of the electoral process. We were seeing the Congress of the United States being overrun, and the Guard, and the Capitol Police, and the MPD. We had the people at the D.C. Armory. Why would they have people there? Because they were given direction to have them there prior, although everyone claims that they were not. The J6 committee will not cover this. Didn't cover it correctly, in my opinion. Because it didn't work into their functional storyline. We had people at the D.C. Army who were able to help. They were not moving, and they were not allowed to move. They're not allowed to go down there. I'd be like, if there's a 5-alarm fire, and you're telling a volunteer fire company, don't go respond to the fire. Go to the trees instead and help the cats and dogs. Don't worry about the fire. It's not there. And then he called them absolute liars. Ex-DC Guard official says generals lied to Congress about January 6th. That was in a 36-page memo that Colonel Earl Matthews wrote. Connecting all the dots, how easy this is. If this doesn't just simply hand Trump the election, because this is what they have used against him time and time again. And this diffuses all of it. Commander Sergeant Major Michael Brooks, D.C. National Guard, they were ready to go. They just couldn't understand why they were sitting there, literally sitting on a bus, just waiting to drive to the Capitol and do the best they could to support the Capitol Police. People were like, why weren't you there? We were. We were just told to wait. We repeatedly told them, we know what you're doing. We just need to give us authorization to go, but they didn't get that. Brigadier General Aaron Dean, D.C. National Guard. I thought to myself, okay, I'm not sure why we're concerned about optics when it comes to, saving lives and preventing damage and lost property, but okay, we'll just sit here on the bus. The lull time between 2:30 p.m. and 5 o'clock, just nothing, the 3 hours we've always talked about. It was like, that's a little odd, very odd. It puts us in a bad situation because we wanted to respond, but we couldn't, so we were just left there waiting. His testimony has been everywhere if you've looked for it. Michael Brooks here, going in an entire report, stating, I believe those who steered the narrative of the DODIG report did not so for historical documentation or for the enhancement of future military response capability, but to protect and advance individuals who sought to shield themselves from responsibility, to overly enhance their role and perceive significance in a critical moment in the history of our nation's democracy. In truth, their actions, no matter how innocent they believed them to be, have led to an awful mark on our military and shown an incredible lack of respect for the service of the men and women who served in the D.C. National Guard before, during, and after January 6th of 2021. What I can tell you with absolute certainty, he states, I hope you've seen these reports. I just tried to put them all in one snapshot for you, just to show you how black and white this is by those who were actually involved, by their testimony, by their words, by their transcripts. What I can tell you with absolute certainty is that we had a force equipped and ready to respond. And despite the inaccuracies found in the DODIG report, we had a plan and we would have liked the opportunity to try. Instead, we waited for hours just 2 miles east of the Capitol building, absolutely frustrated, knowing our Capitol had been breached and not understanding why we had not received the authorization to respond, even though we were, the mainstream media would like everyone to believe that they weren't there. That Trump never did anything, never ordered them ready, but they were there. I cannot tell you the number of times someone has asked me, where were you? Where was the National Guard? And how can you call yourself Capitol Guardians? There's no easy response to those questions, and the truth is we were there. We were ready. We just weren't authorized to respond, and that is difficult to explain. It most certainly is, but now it's all out, isn't it? They put the transcript out. General Walter Payot, Director of Army Staff, what we were afraid of. is that the military assets would be employed without military command, and that weighed heavily when forces were requested in support of January 6th. The man who told them he was concerned about optics. His primary concern is that military assets would be employed without military command. If anybody could explain that statement to me with any degree of reason, I would certainly appreciate it in the comments below. But the transcript's out. Christopher Rodriguez. So it kind of shocked me because we had a situation where the Metropolitan Police Department had been on the scene at the Capitol for over an hour at that point, and we couldn't get any additional support from the Department of Defense. Transcribed interview conducted by the DOD IG, the J6 Select Committee, and the Oversight Committee. Coming out of the House Administration Subcommittee on Oversight, how this does not hand Donald J. Trump the victory. It vindicates everything he stated. It flies in the face of everything the general American public that does not research these matters have been told. It's one of the best reports I've read in a while. I love that it's simply 2 pages long because it doesn't need to be any longer. It's really that easy. It's really that black and white. And now the record has been set straight. We love you all. Couldn't get this to you fast enough today. Until next time, Godspeed and God bless. Justice Knight, on behalf of Lisa Haven, signing out.